Don't forget to like and subscribe. The blackout. The power cut out at exactly 11:13 p.m. Maggie sat upright in bed, heart hammering. The hum of her ceiling fan had vanished. The streetlights beyond her window blinked into darkness, and the distant sound of sirens filled the empty night. A blackout wasn't unusual in Oak Ridge, especially during storms, but tonight, the air was still. No rain, no thunder, just silence. A thick, unnatural silence that pressed against her ears like static. She reached for her phone, but the screen remained black. No battery warning, no flicker, just dead. Frowning, she tried the lamp on her nightstand. Nothing. Even her old wristwatch, a wind-up relic from her grandfather, had stopped ticking. She climbed out of bed and crept to the window. The entire town had gone dark. No headlights, no flickering TVs, not even the usual glow of cigarette embers from her neighbor's porch. It was as if the world had simply stopped. Then she saw them. Dark shapes moved through the streets, slow, deliberate. Not quite human, but not entirely alien either. Shadows that didn't belong, slipping between houses, creeping toward doors and windows. Maggie's breath caught in her throat. Her heart pounded as she backed away from the glass. The air felt heavier now, like something was pressing against her chest. She stumbled over the rug and crashed into her dresser. The noise echoed in the dead silence, and every hair on her body stood on end. Outside, the shadows stopped. A shiver ran down her spine as one of them turned its head toward her window. No eyes, no features, just a shifting, inky mass. But she felt it watching. Then came the sound, a low, droning hum that vibrated in her bones. It was coming from everywhere and nowhere all at once. It seeped into the walls, into her mind. Her vision swam, her thoughts slowed. Her legs buckled, and she hit the floor. Darkness swallowed her whole. When she woke, the lights were back on. Her phone buzzed with notifications. The TV blared an infomercial. The hum of the ceiling fan returned. Everything was normal. Almost. Maggie sat up, gasping for breath. Her fingers ached as if she had been clenching them all night. Her window was still open, the night beyond calm. But deep inside, she knew something had changed. She checked her phone, scrolling through missed calls and texts. Nothing about the blackout. No emergency alerts. No news reports. It was as if it had never happened. But as she stood and turned toward her mirror, her breath hitched. A handprint, dark, smudged, and impossibly large, stained the glass. And it wasn't hers. She backed away, pulse hammering in her ears. The handprint began to fade, dissolving into thin air. Her reflection flickered, just for a second, like a corrupted video feed. Her own face looked distorted, lips slightly off-center, eyes just a fraction too wide. Then, as suddenly as it had changed, it was normal again. A sharp knock at the front door made her jump. Her stomach clenched. It was nearly 3 a.m. No one should be here. The knocks came again, steady, measured, too deliberate. She tiptoed toward the peephole, heart racing. A shadow stood just beyond the porch light's weak glow. Not moving, not breathing. She held her breath. The shadow raised a hand and pressed it against the door. The same impossibly large handprint smeared onto the wood. Maggie stumbled back, a choked sound escaping her lips. Then her phone vibrated in her hand. A single text message lit up the screen. "Don't open the door." Her blood ran cold. She didn't recognize the number. The knock stopped. Silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Maggie stood frozen, clutching her phone as if it were a lifeline. The text message remained on the screen, the sender unknown. Her pulse throbbed in her ears. Then, from the other side of the door, came a whisper. "Maggie." Her knees nearly buckled. It wasn't just a whisper, it was her own voice. Something was imitating her. She stumbled back, her mind screaming for her to run, to hide. But where? The lights flickered again, the house groaning as if under an immense weight. The air thickened, heavy with an invisible presence pressing in around her. The phone buzzed again. Do not respond. Do not speak. Do not look at it. Her breath hitched, panic constricting her chest. The whispering continued, growing more insistent. The voice was perfect, too perfect. Every inflection, every breath was identical to hers. It scratched at her sanity. Then, the doorknob turned. A slow, deliberate twist. The lock held, but the pressure against the door grew stronger. Maggie turned and ran, her bare feet pounding against the wooden floor as she darted into her bedroom, slamming the door behind her. She pressed her back against it, heart racing, mind reeling. She reached for her nightstand drawer, yanking it open. Inside, beneath a pile of old receipts and forgotten trinkets, lay a rusted pocket knife. It was small, dull, but it was something. Her fingers tightened around it. Another buzz. It knows you're alone. Stay quiet. It can hear you. Maggie squeezed her eyes shut, biting down on her lip to stifle a sob. The shadows outside her window twisted, seeping inward through the cracks like living ink. The whispering grew closer until it wasn't outside the door anymore. It was inside the room. Her own voice, right behind her ear. Maggie, a scream caught in her throat. She spun around, the dim light of her bedside lamp casting long shadows against the walls. The room was empty, or so it seemed. Her mirror reflected something she couldn't see. A shape, tall and shifting, stood just behind her reflection, its hands resting on her shoulders. Maggie's breath shuddered as she raised the pocket knife, her fingers trembling. Her reflection moved before she did. Not a trick of the light, not a delayed reaction. It moved first. The thing in the mirror smiled, a wide, unnatural grin that stretched too far. Its lips moved without sound before it whispered again, directly into her mind. You let me in. The lights flickered violently, the air turning ice cold. The reflection lunged, and darkness consumed everything. The power cut out at exactly 11:13 p.m. Somewhere, far beyond the silence, the whisper continued. And this time, Maggie wasn't alone. Outside, the shadows multiplied, creeping closer to every house on the street. More windows bore handprints. More whispers filled the air. The town of Oak Ridge had changed. The blackout had ended, but something had stayed behind, and it was still watching.